Are you afraid of sinkhole homes?
We're going to show you why you shouldn't be. Hello, my name is Barry Horvath, and this is Moving Forward TV, your local market update.
And I am DeLynn Gaston. Thanks for joining us today. Today's show, we are talking about those beautiful homes as you're looking online, maybe up in Indiana or something like that, and moving down to Florida, and you see these great...
Why Indiana?
I don't know. I just picked a
that all
state.
you got?
All right, should we say Minnesota?
Minnesota.
Anyway, you see these houses online. Everybody wants to move to Florida because they can get this gorgeous 4-bedroom, 3-car garage, 3-bath house with a pool. All for
$49,900.
$49,900.
All right, here's what you might be looking at
instead.
And here's what you might get. Today we have a special guest, Mr. Jim Blanford, who is a licensed public adjuster and a licensed real estate professional, and he deals a lot with holes and cracks, we're told. So I don't know what his little side business is. Maybe proctology, I don't know. But
you know, I knew it. You just have been waiting. You just couldn't wait to get that in.
He's a proctologist because he's always looking for big
sinkholes.
cracks.
Sinkholes we are talking
We
about.
got a guy here that deals with big cracks, okay? Sorry.
Okay, I guess that's
Welcome to the show, Jim.
Hi, Jim.
No, we're going to do a short show. Good morning. It's nice to be here.
Thank you for being with
as you
us.
said, I'm a licensed public adjuster, and part of what I do and have done for almost 40 years now is dealing with sinkholes.
He started when he was 2.
And I got from that, people would say, Jim, I'm thinking of buying a house. Could you come look at it and let me know if it has anything you see regarding a sinkhole issue? And I would do that. And then after a while, I said, I'm just going to get into real estate. And here I am.
Because there you are in real estate,
Yes.
in holes all the time.
Yes.
All right, so let's talk about sinkholes. Now, Florida is pretty much a peninsula.
Pretty much.
So we're kind of like on a sinkhole, but it's nothing, it's common down here. Obviously, they can be repaired. They shouldn't have fears.
No, it's just something we have to deal with. It's like dealing with snow if you're from Buffalo.
Exactly.
It's one of the things here. It's a real part of life. It can't be ignored. But rather than be afraid of it, if we become more aware of the situation and how to deal with it as both a realtor and a potential buyer of property, our goal here today, my goal here today, is to get you a little more educated on what you can do to protect yourself.
All right,
and
then
get a better buy perhaps than you would have if you didn't know.
So let's start first with, I know the realtors know, but we also have a lot of potential buyers who watch this show as well. Just real quick, what exactly is a sinkhole? Like, what's happening?
Well, a sinkhole, the entire state, and I'm no
Good
engineer.
question, DeLynn.
Thank you.
And I hope I can come up with a good answer. But this entire state is built on limestone. What a sinkhole is essentially is when that limestone develops a hole due through the acidity of the water, creates a hole in the limestone. The limestone, all the sand and sediment and soil drains through that hole like an hourglass. The old egg timer used to turn over.
Okay,
that kind of
okay.
thing.
Like Days of Our Lives.
And then, I have to watch those. I have a real job. And
Yeah,
but
of course, you're
that-
examining cracks.
That shows the surface, and you get a situation where the soil drops, and that's basically, in a nutshell, a sinkhole. All right. Now, the situation in Florida is sinkhole laws have changed in the last few years. Senate Bill 408 in 2011 made it so most people now do not have or can't afford to have sinkholes covered. Does that mean sinkholes have stopped happening? Absolutely not. They're still going on.
Just means they don't want to insure them anymore.
Right, they don't
at
want to
an
insure
affordable
them.
price.
So what you want to be aware of as a buyer is when you go to look at a home, you need to know what to look for to see if this home has any symptoms of sinkhole damage. Okay, now you can check county records. Go ahead.
That's
over
my
the corner.
question. Yes, me in the back. Okay, so what's the best way a buyer can protect themselves to find out? You know, you see this beautiful house like we had in the beginning, and you know the price is a little low. You know, how do we know if there's a sinkhole? How can we, without spending?
Well, I would imagine they have to disclose, right? Do they not have to
If
disclose this
they-
kind of stuff?
If they know they have to disclose, and disclosure laws being what they are, of course, for you to be required to disclose, you have to have lived in that home. Okay, if you haven't lived in the residence, in other words, if you had a home and you sold it, someone else bought it and didn't live in there, you don't necessarily have to disclose anything.
No kidding.
Okay, so now a second owner can have that house, and if they didn't live in it, the disclosure can say never lived here, and they don't have to answer any of the questions to say we don't know. Okay.
So they bought a sinkhole house cheap,
Right.
and then they go and flip it
Right.
at a premium
And you may
price.
never know that house had a sinkhole. Now, county records, great idea.
That's what I was just going to say. Don't they have to record this stuff?
Pasco County started keeping records in 2009.
What about-
And
what
it's
about-
a good place to start.
What about
Right.
other counties? Do you know
I
if
don't know what
other?
I know Hillsborough just started recently. I heard. I'm not sure about the other counties, but you could check with those counties and call them. I'm sure they'd be happy to walk you through their
Hernando.
process.
So is there any laws in place that they have to, this
Well,
stuff has
I
to
know
be
in
recorded?
Pasco it's part of the law, and how the county found out about it is if the people turned in an insurance claim, and that we're talking Pasco now, and the insurance company brought out an engineer. The engineer had to apply for a permit, and when he applied for that permit, it went on the county's radar site. So now the county knew that there was a sinkhole here. Now, since very few people have coverage, that permit never happens, and I'll tell you why. That testing that the insurance companies paid for runs $7,000 to $10,000.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
The average person, if they think they have, if they're symptomatic for sinkholes, they're not gonna spend $7,000 to $10,000 to find out. Okay, so what they do, so now there's no permit with the county. They'll bring a contractor in if they have typical step cracks through the block, you know, and that's in the pointing of the block. In other words, a block is 16 inches long, and you'll see the step every 16 inches, there's a step. That in itself is nothing to panic about, especially if it's just a hairline crack.
Okay.
That happens all the time. I've had it on my house. Not
Okay.
a big deal, okay? And I'm not having people go and jump off cliffs because they find a little step crack in their
Right.
house. Not the idea of what we're trying to do here, all right? But what you want to do is you can get those fixed and get them fixed and done. That's not symptomatic of a serious problem. But if you get cracks that are starting to open up, or you can get a quarter in them or a pencil, or you can see through them to the outside, probably an issue. Okay, not necessarily a sinkhole, but that should be checked. But again, people aren't spending that money. So what do? Let's suppose you want, it's no different than if the transmission was slipping on your car and it's out of warranty. Rather than spend $2,500 on a transmission, you're gonna say, honey, let's trade this car in.
Right,
Let's get it now
right.
before it falls out of the car. And that's what you're gonna do. You take it to some wholesaler, he's gonna bring it in, and boom, that car's gonna go on the lot. Maybe they fix it, maybe they don't. You'll never know. Okay, but you're rid of your problem. That's what's happening in housing now. Okay, so if someone gets one of
Makes
these
sense.
houses, or
Yeah,
they
it
get
does.
the cracks, okay?
We're gonna
and
call
they're
him Dr.
serious.
Crack.
And where you see them a lot, when you see these cracks, if you come into a home, especially in a garage, the cracks are typically in the front end of the garage, and you'll see the step crack. If there's a crack in the slab of the garage, in that corner, now if that crack is just there and the pavement hasn't started to settle at all, you're okay. More than likely you're okay. But if it started to open up and you got a quarter inch or a half inch in that garage where that's now it's dropping. Okay, and if you go outside and there's a little bit of dip in the yard at that point, now you might have an issue. And that's something to be legitimately concerned about. And if you're looking at houses in that area, and one house has that and the other three don't, that may be the house you want to avoid. Okay, because again, it has the issues that you don't want to have to deal with, especially in view of the fact that you're not going to be able to get insurance, very possibly going to have problems getting insurance in that home because of the issue of the cracks.
I'm gonna go on a limb here. Wait.
Okay.
The first thing you look at when you
I
go in a
have a
house.
serious question. Are you
No,
going to do something?
This is serious.
You're going to get to something with
Probably
Dr. Crack.
walk in. Yeah, no, I'm not gonna make fun. I bet the first thing you look for when you walk in a house, when you came in our studio here, what did you do?
I check for cracks. and then I looked around
That's
the building.
all I needed to know. He's the crack doctor.
And that's what I do. I've been trained for so long to do this. That's what you look at everywhere.
He's got an eye for
So he
crack.
just
It's
walks
pretty
around
sad.
looking at cracks.
I don't get asked out a lot anymore at people's houses, but it's the way it works.
All right, now, serious question. So if there happens to be sinkhole activity or something like that, or somebody had a sinkhole on a street, does that mean like the whole street and the whole neighborhood is kind of in danger, or
No, it doesn't
not
mean
necessarily,
that at all,
right?
But at the same time, sinkholes do not respect property lines, okay? And one of the best ways you can find out what's going on in a neighborhood, especially if you're a buyer, you're gonna spend a lot of money here, and no one's gonna protect your interests like you do, unless you
Right.
have a realtor who knows more than the average bear about it, and will go around and ask those questions, okay? You wanna check with the neighbors. I just had a situation with the house that we went under contract on, the deal fell through for financing, but I pointed out to the listing agent that, I saw some cracks in the garage that were of concern, and I saw some cracks in the back of the house that were concerning. I pointed those out to my client, who's a contractor. He had no problem with that. So I made him aware of what I saw, and he said, okay, I can deal with it. Fine, I've done my due diligence, okay? Now, my bar is a little higher than a lot of people because I know more. And believe me, sometimes it's a pain to know more because of the responsibility that comes with it. Now, that deal fell through. The listing agent called me a week or two later and asked me if I could forward her a copy of our inspection report, which my client had done. And I said I could do that if my client was willing to release it. I said, let me ask you why. And she said, well, the next home inspector thinks the house has a sinkhole.
Oh,
and I
imagine
said,
that.
Good for him.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I'm going to caution realtors and using the word sinkhole. All right, you got to be very, very careful. You do not want to tell your potential buyer or seller that a house has a sinkhole if it hasn't been defined by someone who's got the authority to do that, like an engineer, and if it hasn't been tested and proven to be a sinkhole, I would use the word, we think this house has settlement issues. Because what you don't want is Mrs. Seller or Mr. Seller coming up to you after the fact and saying, you know what? We heard you said we have a sinkhole and we don't, and here's my attorney's name.
Yeah.
And you two need to have a chat. So don't get into that. Unless you see a report that defines it as a sinkhole, do not use that word, use settlement activity. And you'll see that if you look through the different listings, you'll see most of them refer to possible settlement issue, repaired settlement issue, and they might say repaired sinkhole because it's been defined.
Okay. Now, so bringing up repaired sinkholes, let's talk a little bit about that. First of all, I would imagine it's pretty costly, and the insurance companies will pay for that, right?
Yeah,
For the most part, because
if they agree, and that's a big if, that's a whole nother show, that it is a sinkhole, and they agree on the method of repair, which is another big if. The whole thing in Dunedin was about agreeing with method of repair. Should we pin it? Should we grout it? And meanwhile, the house
And that's what I was going to say. There's a couple of ways to do it. There's a couple of methods. Can you just real quickly touch on
the two basic methods? One is pinning. Pinning, if we pretend, if you're in a room and look at the floor, and we'll pretend that's limestone, okay, for the purpose of demonstration. If you're sitting at a table, we'll pretend the top of that table is ground level. Pinning is when they take metal poles, for lack of a better word, and they drill holes and all the way down to the limestone, and they connect the top of that table to the limestone. It's like putting legs
So
on
the
the table.
table's my foundation.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Okay.
the top of the table is your foundation, or this ground surface. Okay? Yes, and now it's secured by pins
Tightly.
to limestone. It's the best you can get.
Okay.
All right? The other method is grouting. It's when you fill the sinkhole with cement without stones. Pretty much it's grouted, put under pressure. Okay. Now that's not as desirable as pinning in my mind, and I'm not an engineer, but several professionals who do this for a living would prefer pinning. Oddly enough, some of the insurance companies don't pay for pinning, even though it's cheaper than grouting. Don't ask me how that works, but that's how it happens. Okay. Now the good news for insurability is citizens now in the last 6 or 8 months have said, look, as far as repairability, we're going to consider pinning and grouting as equals. So we don't need to beat that horse anymore. It's a done deal.
In some cases, I've seen where they do both pinning and grouting.
And that's the combo. That's the fries.
That's the
and
Mac
burger
Daddy.
and the drink. Yeah, that's the best you can
That's
do.
supersizing
Yeah,
it.
there you go. That's it.
It's
I've done that a
59
few times.
cents.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Boy, that's a lot of stuff to, I don't know if most people know, but a public adjuster, like Jim is a licensed public adjuster, goes to the insurance companies and negotiates these types of things. So he's very familiar with these types of things. And we're going to do a whole show live on this whole sinkhole issue, because there's so much we need to cover.
My mind is going with all these questions and everything, but I know that we want to keep this short.
So we want to wrap this up and just at least introduce Jim here and go forward.
Just a real couple of quick things that a buyer should look for and that the realtor should look for when they're taking a listing. Let's just do some real fast bullet points for people, and then I promise you guys we're going to have Jim back.
Okay, first thing, if you're a buyer and you're working with a realtor, ask them, are they aware, what's their view on sinkholes in the area? Are there sinkholes in this neighborhood? And then you can judge yourself on the answer you get. If someone says, I don't know, or they have no knowledge of it, you may want to move on, because it's an issue here.
Right.
And again, it can be dealt with. Sinkholes are, we'll talk about values on that maybe another time, but if the sinkhole is repaired properly, if the property is insurable, big ifs, that property, in my mind, if you go into a neighborhood that has a lot of sinkholes, and either houses, they either had one or they're going to, and there are neighborhoods in certain areas in that scenario, I would much rather buy a house that's had a sinkhole repaired properly, because the chances of having an issue again are virtually nil. because you're not going to be able to get sinkhole coverage anyway. Either you won't be able to afford it, or it's just not available.
So what should they look for? Hairline cracks? Should they look for?
Yeah, look for the hairline cracks. Look for, if you walk into a home and you see that it's got fresh paint on the inside and new paint on the outside, and it's got cheap laminate flooring, excuse me, and it's got new carpet, that's got to set off a red flag.
Okay.
Okay, because that's telling you someone's redone this whole house. Now you want to ask questions. And
Okay.
again, because sinkholes don't respect boundaries, look at the house next door. And if
Right.
you see step cracks in the end of that house that's adjacent to yours, now you want to ask more questions. The other thing, if you're going into a neighborhood where the homes typically don't have paver driveways, and I would say any neighborhood where a home is selling for $150 or less, those homes typically don't come with paver driveways. If you go into a neighborhood and you see paver driveways once in a while, you can bet that that home has probably had a sinkhole repair, and I'll tell you why. Unscrupulous public adjusters, and they went out and said to people, we'll get you so much money if you hire us that we'll give you a free paver driveway. And a lot of people went for it. So if you're going into, and I don't want to say lower end home, but mid-level and down, and the paver driveways didn't come with the homes. Now, and you see a paver driveway, do your homework, okay? Like I said before, it's you've got to protect yourself.
Buyer
No one's
beware.
going to protect you like, I'm just trying
We
to
got
help
to
you
do.
buyers.
We're going to cover all this on our live show coming up. So, thanks, Jim, for joining us today. We
Wow,
have
wow, wow.
lot of stuff.
Lots
and we're
of
gonna have Jim back.
information.
We're going to start shooting live here very soon.
I know we keep on
And we're
saying
gonna,
that.
And we're going to have Jim on the show, and we're going to do we're going to do like 3 weeks of information in a row. Okay, I'm just kidding. Just on sinkholes, because there's
No,
so
there's
much
sinkholes.
concern
There's
on
so much, and a lot of myths out there. And I know that Jim can help us dispel a lot of those myths. And we want to make sure that everybody's not afraid of them, because they certainly are. Like you said, once they're repaired, wow.
Right. So if you want to
Nothing's
see the
knocking that
Crack
down.
Man, you come right here and come join us. So,
Are you going to get him a name tag?
Yeah.
A shirt that says
Dr. Crack.
The Crack Man. Anyway, this is a good show to share if you know somebody buying a house or
A good
somebody.
show to share? This is a great show to share.
This is a great show to
Get
share.
it out on social media, YouTube, Facebook.
We're all over the place. Share us out there.
So send it out to all your friends and family and those people that you really like and want to.
We appreciate your support, and we are today and every day.
Moving forward.
We will see everybody next week.
You
Thanks.
heard it from the Crack Man right here.
Bye.